Hello and welcome to Level Up Your Life. I am Mark Black, transplant recipient turned 4-time marathon runner, entrepreneur, and coach. Each week on this show, we bring you strategies, concepts, and tactics to help you take your work, your health, and your relationships to the next level. It's time to begin. Let's get ready to level up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Level Up Your Life. This is your host, Mark Black, and today I am excited to be interviewing John Demato. John is a photographer, although that really just scratches the surface of what he does. Past producer and many other qualifications and experiences that I know we'll get into in the next half hour, 45 minutes. So, John Demato, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
So listen, I learned about you through a colleague of mine who posted these really incredible photographs. So as we record this, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 adventure, I'm calling it, which has caused, different people to deal with different challenges, but everybody's going through disruption of various kinds. And one of the big disruptions that's been caused, of course, is live events have essentially disappeared for who knows how long. As a speaker, my calendar went from looking pretty good to being completely empty in the span of about 5 days. And as we record this, who knows what's going to happen with that. And I know that a lot of your work was tied to live events as well, right?
My work was tied to the people who do live events. So it's live events plus their lifestyle portraiture that promotes them to be on those stages. So yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and for those of us who are not educated in the field, what does lifestyle photographs mean?
Well, the way that I coined the phrase is branded lifestyle portraiture. And essentially what those photos are images that illustrate who you are, who you serve, why you do what you do. So it's, what does work look like to you? What does brainstorming ideas look like to you? What does working with clients look like to you? In your spare time, what is that? So it's a variety of different things with different clients who are interested in creating that emotional connection with their audience. So they're interested in creating that that kind of vibe of, oh, I want to get to know that person more, based simply on them coming across this image on social media or on their website, and kind of drawing people in. And that's...
And why is that? So that makes complete sense to me, but as somebody who maybe isn't so as a speaker, I am my brand, for lack of a better explanation. And so I totally get the value of that. But for the people who listen who are maybe not, they've got an office job or something else and they don't maybe have their heads around that. Why do I need to know that full picture? Or how is that helpful in marketing somebody?
It's important because people don't hire you necessarily for what you do. They hire you for who you are. You're building relationships with people. I work with people who don't commoditize their services. I work with people who are building relationships with their clients in a way that makes they're relatable. And when you have these images that kind of break down that fourth wall between you and the people that can potentially hire you, they now get a sense of your personality, and it creates that relatability. And once you're more relatable with someone, that's when the connection truly comes. And it might not necessarily be something that pays dividends in a day or 2 days. It's a nurturing process. And when you leverage image content that visually punctuates the sentiments of all the stories that you share with your audience, that's where you start to create that opportunity to draw people in, like, oh wow, that person looks really interesting. It's not enough to just solve people's problems. You also have to be relatable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what you do goes far beyond the classic, well, in Canada we'd call it the Sears portrait. I don't know what they'd call it in the US, but basically
they call it that too.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
They like sit with the indescript backdrop and sit on felt stool and turn slightly to the right or left and snap your shot. And if you're a, a realtor or a insurance agent or something like that, you've had those taken for the last, for
Sure.
every 2 years
Yeah.
for your whole career. Um,
Yeah.
I've seen your work, so I know how much beyond that it is. But why, again, why does that matter to people? Because it comes at a bigger investment of time and money as well to do beyond the, here's what I look like photo.
Right. Well, what the goal of these images is to create an image content library that spans the emotional spectrum through your facial expression and your body language, because those are the cues that people receive when they're looking at your image. That's how they determine whether or not they like you. That emotional connection is drawn in by the fact that, oh, like that gets people interested in wanting to learn more about you, to get on your list, to follow you on social, to maybe email you, to get on a call. These are the things that we need as business owners to strike up that interest and to get business rolling. And when you have images that span the emotional spectrum, it touches on that relatability, and it touches on that ability for you to visually punctuate, stories of vulnerability, stories of, joy and happiness. What does joy look like on your face? What does vulnerability look like on your face?
Mhm.
Because you're talking about it in the copy, but I want to see it on your face. And if all the photos that you have are of you being, with the arms folded, looking like a badass, or you're like in front of like a Gulf Stream looking, trying to be all luxurious or whatever, or if you're just wildly happy with a big, big overjoyed laugh, but there's no gray area.
Hmm.
The trust is hard to come by for people because you're a superhero. You're not relatable, and that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So especially in, in our industry where as a keynote speaker, you stand on a stage and there are two, three, 500, 1,000 people in front of you. There's this very real separation that happens because you're there and the audience is on the other side.
Yeah.
And you really have to work hard with your content, I think, in your delivery to be relatable because as you said, there's this imagined or otherwise, there's this kind of barrier that's there. Um, how does the fact that for a lot of us in that world, but across the world in all industries, we're working more and more virtually, is that not a barrier to relatability as well?
Well, it actually makes the job easier
Interesting.
now.
Okay.
It makes the job and this is a very, very new territory for me, and obviously for all of us, within those who serve the speaker and trainer and consultant industries and the practitioners of, within the industry. But the reality is where are you right now doing this? And where are you when you deliver your keynotes now? And where are you delivering your trainings? It's in your house. And where are the people consuming it? In their houses. So at the end of the day, it's like it's the playing visually, the playing field has leveled. But the
Hmm.
reality is that your expertise is still desperately needed to be heard by those who want to get from where they are to where they want to be, and you can help solve that problem. But just visually, it's not a big stage with thousands of people in the room, which, by the way, those photos at some point will be valuable once again. Now, if you use them, you're tone deaf, and it's not the way to go. You need those photos of you presenting virtually in order to connect with people, because that world doesn't exist for now. We'll come back, but not for now.
Yeah, and that's a great marketing lesson, I think, for anybody in any business is that the image that you're portraying has to match what the client is looking for, and we can't expect clients to connect those dots on their own, right? It's amazing to me how often, without explicit explanation, a client can see you do your thing in one context and not automatically go, oh, well, they could obviously do that in this other context that's very related to it, because for some reason, well, they haven't had to think about it. It's not their world, right? And so,
Yeah.
in my context, if I'm doing a workshop in a high school, it would never occur to the parent sitting there that I could also go and speak at their company because this is the one context they've seen, and so that's kind of the box that they put you in. And I'm sure as photographers, you face the same challenge where if you the versatility that you have is not necessarily appreciated by somebody who's only kind of seen what you do in one particular um, vertical or one particular industry.
Right, right. Well, I would say that what I focus on now is actually sticking to the one vertical and being the expert and the authority in that space, similar to what you guys do
Yeah,
with your intellectual property. It's not a matter of disseminating in different ways. It's a matter of that's not what I'm talking about. What I mean is, you specialize in a certain for a certain type of or a certain type of message that can be related,
yeah,
whereas I have one style of photography that I gear towards one particular type of group because I want to be seen as that expert in a similar light as you do. So other verticals don't matter to me anymore as much anyway.
nice. Yeah, and I guess maybe that's what I was trying to get at and didn't express clearly is the reason that I even found you is because you've gotten so good at the craft, obviously good at what you do, but also good at making a name for yourself in that space so that people talk about you when they talk about, because they're like, you're in the same boat I am. There are thousands of people who technically do what you do, but not nearly as many who do it the way you do it for the group that you do it in the way that you do all of those things. So making that name for yourself in that particular space is super important. Now, what's really fascinating to me about you is you took what you do in a space and said, how can I make that work when the environment is completely different? And when it would be super easy to just go, oh, well, I do event photography, or I do photography for people who work in the event industry, and that's shut down. So I'm out of luck, or I need to go find a real job, or whatever, whatever and I have colleagues as speakers who are doing that right now. They're saying, look, we're not going to have live events for who knows how long, and I can't sit on the sidelines and wait for that to come back. So I'm going to go do something else. And then there's the other group of people who go, wait a minute, how can I take what I already do and just innovate the delivery model so that I can be relevant and continue to do what I do, even though things have changed?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish me veering into this virtual space was by design, but in fact, I stumbled on it.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, that's a fascinating story. So let's hear about
I
that.
could, yeah, sure. So, so as I've mentioned to you offline before this conversation, I haven't been feeling well, and I believe that I have the virus. But either way, I've just been feeling very off, and recently the National Speakers Association, the New York City chapter, started doing virtual calls, and I'm a photography sponsor for them, and I've basically shot all of their events, their live events, since June of 2018. So when I saw this virtual event, I felt very uh, it just felt like I wanted to, at least see the event. So I got the link, I signed up, and I was watching it. And while the MC, Jill Schiffelbein, was MCing that particular event, I just really wasn't feeling well and was kind of bummed out. But I looked over to where my camera was sitting on the floor in my office, and I was like, let me just grab this thing and just snap a couple of shots. So I pointed at the screen, took a couple of shots of her, and then I looked at it, and I'm like, these actually don't look that crappy. and I was like, let me shoot the rest of the event. So there was a panel and another speaker, and shot all of that. And the next day, I put together a post. Posted it on social. I didn't tell anybody with the NSA that I was doing this. So I got a lot of, oh, wow, this is really interesting, really unique. It's really something that we need right now. Very cool, very creative. And I, all I did was do it because I kind of felt like a little bit of an obligation to at least try, because I've been shooting these things, and from that interest, I realized, like, oh, maybe there's something here, and that's where it started.
So cool. So neat.
Yeah.
I mean, so I love two things about that. One, that it wasn't like super strategic and planned out. Not that there's anything wrong with having strategy, obviously, but
No,
sometimes our great ideas come, to us out of nowhere, and sometimes oftentimes I think they're experiments, and we see if they work, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And obviously, this time it did. Um,
I I wrote a blog about the experience, and the title is sometimes the best ideas come from love and service. The concept of love and service, and that's what this is. You know.
yeah, and that's the other piece that I was struck by, was that it was not. When I say not strategic, I also mean it wasn't like, oh, let me shoot a couple of shots and then pitch this as a service to people. It was just kind of like, hey, I want to, first of all, let's see what this looks like, and then, oh, it looks kind of cool. I bet the people in these photos would appreciate seeing them, kind of thing. And then obviously organically, it's grown into something a lot bigger than that. But um, and then when you put it out to people on social, when you turn it into a formal offer, uh, it was, I mean, I say this, well, hopefully without offending you, underpriced, big time, right? Because you could have easily charged a lot more for it because of the quality of the work. And I know that you did that, with some intention behind it, because you wanted to serve people who were struggling just like you are right now, and it's just really cool to
Yeah,
see.
yeah. The thing about the price is I've heard it about 10 different times, and the reality is I I I, I want to be useful. I don't want to outprice myself. I want to be useful, and I want to go back to what we said before. I want to develop relationships with the people that I serve. I want to be able to work with the people that inspire me with what they do for a living. And if I start charging the prices that I charge for other services during normal times, not during the upside down times as we are living in right now, I'm not going to get that opportunity. So for me, it's more about the connection and the work and being useful than it is about trying to make a buck right now. Now, listen, we all, I mean, we're all doing this to make some kind of money. There is no doubt about that. But that piece is very, very, very intentional to not be that over the top of the price. You
Yeah,
know.
and we both, I think, are on the same page with that, in the sense that that pays off long term anyway, right? Like, I mean, the work that you do for those people, because you care about them, and because you care about their work, all of that wrapped together means that when those people are back in full business, when things are back to a normal, the new normal, whatever we're calling that, whatever's going to be a year from now or 2 years from now, they're going to remember, right? And so when it comes time to do the bigger packages, and the more expensive stuff, they're going to, hopefully anyway, they're going to look to you as opposed to somebody else. I would hope they would.
I mean, they might not. At the end of the day, it's listen, one foot in front of the other. You said that we shot your thing. I know whenever this airs, yesterday, we did your photos, your virtual
Mm.
photos, and I wrote a post, one foot in front of the other, because that's what I've been saying to myself. And when I heard you say that, I was like, wow, it's really awesome that you use that phrase as well, because it's about as true as it can possibly be. That is all we literally can think about right now. It's the moment that's happening right now. Because if we start to think about 6 months from now, a year from now, yeah, we can plan for things and we can be strategic about that, and we can put together things that help us grow. But at the end of the day, what's actually happening is we can't catastrophize and worry about you know where we're going, other than one foot in front of the other and focus on that.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it's a delicate balance, right? Because I think we don't want to be in fire extinguisher mode all the time, right? You can't remain in kind of fight or flight panic at all times.
Right.
But we also, to your point, I mean, for the last 5 years, I think people are starting to realize that this idea of a 5-year plan is becoming outdated, because things just change too quickly. And then we've had what's happened in the last 3 months, and it's like, whatever the rate of change was before, it's accelerated tenfold for the foreseeable future. Because I
Oh
mean, for
yeah.
a long time, over the last 90 days, we've been living as business owners kind of day to day, even in terms of what are the new regulations going to be, and what am I going to be allowed to do, and where are customers' heads, and what are the practicalities of operating my business depending on if I'm a brick and mortar or I'm not. And I mean, I was literally at the mall with my daughter about an hour ago. She saved up a whole bunch of money so that she could buy herself a new phone, and we're standing outside this store. Like I hadn't even until I thought to myself, oh yeah, I've got lots of time. I can go and grab that and come back and do this interview with John. And then I'd send you a message because I'm like, we've been in line at at this telecom store for like a half an hour because they only allowed two people in the store at once, and I hadn't even thought
Oh
of that.
wow.
And we're
Yeah.
having to wait for them. But and that's not a complaint. That's just a reality of what's going on right now. So um, yeah, the one foot in front of the other thing is something that seems to never go out of style because it's always applicable. Even if you have the long term vision, you still have to execute that on a day to day basis, right? Have you?
That's probably the better way to put it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it's yeah. Have you found, or not to, no, I don't want to put the words in your mouth. Let me ask it a better way.
Hmm.
What have you found more challenging? The physical, because we've talked a little bit offline about the physical ramifications for you of contracting what you believe is COVID, um, and the business implications of everything going upside down. Has there been one that's been more challenging than the other, or just challenging in different ways?
It's sucked heavily on many levels. um, at the very beginning, when I was feeling really fatigued and tired and really unmotivated and getting the migraines, I was reading a lot and listening to a lot on TV, and I legitimately thought I was going to die. And it wasn't even like I was in the hospital, but the hysteria of what was going on. And I'm in New York City,
Mm,
so compounding all of that, I had never been that scared in my life. The last thing I was thinking about was my business. I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make this, even though I never felt physically, but mentally and emotionally, I was torpedoed. Um, and then I started to feel better, and then I went on a fast from all of that crap, and I
mm,
realized this is it's not helpful. It's not serving me in any way, shape, or form. And the reality is, no one knows anything. So I'm not prescribing to anything anymore. And once that happened, I emotionally started to feel better, and then the business stuff started to come around. It's like, oh wow, all these people are no longer going to work with me now. Now what the hell am I going to do with that? Um, and that's when I started thinking about stuff in terms of strategy for what I was going to do. And again, the thing that popped up was not the thing I was thinking about. And it's funny that that happened that way. But I'm very fortunate and very grateful that I didn't end up in a hospital. I didn't end up dead, and I figured out something that keeps me busy and useful and functional with the people that I work with. So I know that not everybody is in that boat. So I'm very grateful for that.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I am as well, and that's such a interesting point that you bring that up because that seems to be a recurring theme with the people I'm talking with who are doing better than others, if that's it. I don't even know if you can quantify that, but the people who seem to be in a better frame of mind while still going through a really challenging time is that gratitude of yeah, this is hard. It's hard for everybody, and it's harder for some than others, absolutely. But there are people choosing to focus on what's on the challenge, on what's going wrong, on what they've lost, et cetera, et cetera. And there are others who are focusing on what remains, what they have to be grateful for, where the opportunities might be. And it really seems like the people who are doing better, both financially as well as mentally and emotionally, are those who are intentionally focusing on just being grateful for what they still have.
Yeah. Yeah, and guess what? It's hard even for those people because it's a daily grind. It's a daily it's hard. Yeah. I'm trying to change my morning routine in order to kind of, because I still wake up sometimes in the morning. I'm like, what the hell is going on? What's going on out in this world? I miss people. I'm in this apartment by myself. I'm shooting a laptop screen on a folding table in my bedroom. What the hell? My business, you know? And then, but then by the same token, I snap out of it, the negative self-talk with the, yeah, you have a roof over your head, you can afford, you have things coming in, you're okay, you have your brain. And but what I'm trying to do is I'm incorporating some more mindset things into and more routine that promotes more of a healthy mindset in the morning. I'm reading now, which I never did. I
Mm.
started that a couple of days ago, and it's about constantly figuring out how to create that positive calibration within your daily routine so that you don't fall off the rails, because it can happen in the blink of an eye, even for the people that are working towards it. Because we're all human. All of us are human, and we all have human emotions, and it gets real sometimes, and it gets real scary, and it's just it's a constant challenge.
Yeah, I love that you shared that, and I love that you're honest about that because you're right, and that's what I. One of the things that a recurring theme on this podcast is because I get to interview some pretty cool folks and some people who've done some pretty neat things, and yet we're all just people. And something like this virus, I think, is a great uh, recalibration, a great reminder for all of us about that fact, about that, like it doesn't matter if you're living in the penthouse of a big building in New York City or you're living in some tiny place in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't matter if you're, making a million a year or you're making 20,000 a year. Something like this affects those two people not exactly the same way, but can be more harmful to one than the other, and there's no rhyme or reason to that, and so that hopefully one of the things I hope that comes out of all of this is that bond that we all share as human of being perhaps more fragile than we'd like to think is something that we all have in common. And in a time when I feel like we've lost sight of our commonalities, or we like to focus way more on our differences, um, that's a hopefully a positive thing that comes out of all of this.
Yeah, yeah. Compassion and empathy are those don't go out of style, um, ever. But now more than ever, it's harder than ever too. But at the end of the day, it's something that we all need to work towards, because we can't be on an island during this thing. It's about community more so than ever, and I think it's a reminder of that, because when you're stuck in a place and you can't really go anywhere, it's like, oh wow, it really is important. Relationships are vital.
Yeah, and you've got the added challenge of living on your own in a place where you have to be more careful, arguably, than more rural areas because just of the population density, et cetera. What have you done? Have you started to be more intentional about making those social connections and those building those relationships in whatever virtual capacity you can, given the reality of your circumstance?
I've been really trying to debate that, actually trying to think about what can I do. I'm still in the process of figuring out what that engagement looks like, honestly. Because it went from feeling like we're going to die, being sick, and just not having energy, to all of a sudden building a business angle that I never thought I'd be doing, to now, okay, dust is settling and we're breathing, and it's like, what can I do? And it's like I'm thinking about stuff that I'd like to do once we're back to being human beings again and can go
Hmm.
places. But there is that piece in the middle that I'm still trying to figure out, and what does that look like? And I don't know yet, to be completely honest with you, but I know I desperately want it, because when you're left to your own devices in your own mind, things get a little crazy in there. So it's like when you have these conversations like this, it's like, this is awesome. It's like, oh my God, I'm talking to somebody. This is
Right?
great.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like I need it. I need it, and I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is, but I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, I look forward to finding out where you go because I'm sure it'll be somewhere interesting and valuable for other people because it's really clear in the short time we've gotten to know each other that you've got a big heart that's out there trying to make the world a better place in your own, in your own sphere, in your own space. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. But I think, yeah, it's just like you said, it's such a tricky thing to navigate, and we're all kind of going through it to get like, I feel like in many other challenges I've been through in my life, I've been able to look to somebody else who's been there, done that, and go, okay, well, what did you do in that situation? Not that it's going to apply 100% to my context, but at least we have enough similarities that, so for example, when I'm getting listed for our lung transplant, I can go, okay, well, who else out there has gone through this transplant thing? Tell me about that. What was that like for you? How did you, and you can glean a lot of wisdom from that. But in
Yeah.
this kind of environment where we're all figuring it out together, it's kind of hard to know, who do I look to? Who's got the answers? Or does anybody have the answers?
Just going to download the House Party app and take my chances. Do you guys have that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
neat to see the innovation that's happening. We haven't actually used it yet. We're going to use it this weekend, but we've been doing my folks obviously want to stay in touch with their sons. They more importantly want to stay in touch with their grandkids. So we've
Right.
been doing like card games and board games with like multi-camera iPhones and stuff set up on their table and our table so that they can kind of play
Oh,
joint
cool.
games and stuff.
Yeah.
It's neat to see the solutions that people come up with when, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So
It no more time than now to actually, that statement resonates. It's crazy. Yeah.
well, I mean, yeah, and I'm gonna put a link in the show notes so that people can take a look at some of the photos you've done, and when they can, we'll put a link to the website as well so that people can check it out. But
Sure.
um, I think I'm safe in saying that you never imagined yourself shooting pictures of laptops sitting on stools and tables, and uh, but there you have it.
No, no. I'll tell you one thing though. My floor has been really the beneficiary because I've been rolling around on it in sweatpants, so I get to clean it every day. So it's pretty good. I guess we got to take the good with the bad, right? Take the positives.
Absolutely, 100%. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's good. Awesome. Well, so John, first of all, thanks. Appreciate so much the time, and fascinating to chat with you. Let people know where they can learn more about you and check out some of the work that you're doing.
Sure. Probably the best place to find me is my website, johndemato.com. And from there, all things come. You'll see me on all the social links are at the bottom of every page. So you could just check me out. I have a blog that I write 3 times a week. You can sign up for that on my website. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Love it. Yeah, and the blog is really, really well done, well written too. So make sure you check that out as well, folks. John Amato, thanks so much for making the time today. Appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Hope your road to recovery continues and continues to go smoothly. And look forward to seeing what you come up with next, because the photos that you're doing right now are certainly innovative uh, and they're helping a lot of people. I know that they're helping us as speakers figure out how to repackage what we do, and you're repackaging what you do, and it's gonna be really neat to see what comes out of all of this.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate it. You be well.
Thanks.